All righty. So I am going to read the wonderful bios of Chase and Luke, and then we will get started asking them some questions. So first we have Chase Jackson. So Chase graduated from Clemson in 2022, the business management and operations emphasis degree. After graduation, she moved to Atlanta, Georgia to become an operations supervisor for DHL Supply Chain. She worked there for about a year and a half, managing shipments and a team of 20 forklift operators. But she was looking for a change and a chance to pursue her dreams and work in the concert industry. And so she got the opportunity to become an intern for the Mercedes-Benz Stadium at the beginning of 2024. 4 months later, she was hired on as a private events operations coordinator for the stadium. And the private events team is responsible for planning and executing all corporate events that come to the stadium. And so she also serves as a liaison between the client and the stadium's internal departments. So she ensures that all the event spaces in Mercedes-Benz Stadium are set according to the client's needs and that the event runs smoothly. In her free time, she enjoys going to concerts, going to festivals, taking care of her house plants, and dancing as well. So, Chase, if you want to say a few words to the students, please feel free to do so.
Yes, excuse me. Hello, everyone. Cameron, thank you so much for that bio. That really kind of sums it up for me, but I'm really happy to be here and have the opportunity to talk with you all. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Chase. And now we'll have Luke Hall. So, Luke Hall is a PhD student at the Dartmouth Institute for Health Policy and Clinical Practice. Prior to joining TDI, he worked for 3 years at Clemson University as a statistical analyst on a regional population health program, leading evaluation studies, managing large data sets, and collaborating on strategic research projects with a major learning health system. Luke has also collaborated with a multidisciplinary team from the Society of Critical Care Medicine and the Critical Path Institute, focusing on drug repurposing research in ICUs, particularly for conditions like sepsis. So his work applies real-world data to optimize therapies and address treatment gaps through data harmonization and advanced analytics. Luke is also a two-time Clemson alumnus with an MS in applied health research evaluation and a BS in psychology with a minor in life science. He is a South Carolina native and he still enjoys golfing, but he is staying active in the Northeast through hitting the slopes for as much skiing as possible. So Luke, please say a few words to the students as well.
Yeah, good afternoon, you guys. That's such a formal bio. I appreciate that. I'm not that impressive in real life, but I definitely think that I am brushing up my skills for skiing now that I live in the Northeast, and that's pretty new for me, but excited to speak with you guys.
Perfect, perfect. Thank y'all so much. So how this will work is I have a few questions for each of them, and y'all can both answer them, and then we'll have some time for you, the students, to ask some questions as well. If you could come with any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, but we will wait to the end to answer those. All right. So for each of you, can you each describe your on-campus internship or internships, multiple, and kind of what projects you did and what led to you becoming a UPIC intern?
Sure,
Whoever
I
wants to
can
go
go
first.
ahead and start. So my internship was with the Enterprise Risk Governance Department. And when I was applying for that role at the time, I didn't really understand what it was. But I was really just looking to get an internship. And normal internships, like when you have them with an outside company or something like that, they usually require to be a junior or above. But for UPIC, I was a sophomore and I was able to apply. So that was a really great opportunity I thought I should take advantage of. But later on, once I started working with the department, I kind of learned that risk governance is just thinking about the future and it's thinking about all of the what ifs that the university has. So, like, what if a hurricane came through campus tomorrow? Or what if during a football game, the lights in the stadium just shut down? They think about everything that could possibly happen within the university, and then they work to put plans in place to prevent all of that stuff from happening. So me and my internship, what I helped them mostly with was with their data organization and kind of analytics. They had an application that they used, and that's where they kind of inputted all the risks, potential risks that the stadium has as a whole. And then there they kind of categorized each risk by what type is it? Is it a financial risk? Is it more of a social risk, something that could affect the students on campus? And then also categorize it by priority. How important is this risk? Is it really going to happen, or is it something that's small and really is probably not going to happen? So I kind of helped them to take all that data and make sure visually it made sense. It made sense to anybody who didn't know anything about risk governance. They could look at the app and understand what was going on, and just visually with indicators like high high risk being red. That's very important, with the low risk being green. Just making sure when you're looking at all the data, when you visually see it, you know what's going on. And that's mostly what my role was with the department.
That sounds like a cool experience. So, in a similar vein to Chase, I had no idea what I was first applying to. I was pretty young in college, and this was also during the COVID season. So, I found, I guess I happened to stumble into Clemson Job Link. I found this was also in the middle of a time that I was switching majors from chemical engineering to health sciences. And I met with Julie Biggers, who's a part of the Career Center. She had put me in touch with the Clemson Job Link. And I quickly found, kind of through her recommendation too, just maybe an internship that would maybe align to jumping into a new major like health sciences. And so I ended up working for the Clemson University School of Health Research for probably 3 years as an undergraduate student. Almost I would say every semester except one was I employed by the Kusher, for short, the School of Health Research. We did a lot of fun, random things. It was working for a professor in the public health sciences department, who also served as Prisma Health, which is the regional hospital system nearby. She also served as the chief science officer. So we were doing a little bit of research administration work, and I was helping her prepare for presentations and helping her engage with various physicians across the state of South Carolina to connect them with researchers at Clemson. So I kind of got to see what research is really about. I also got plugged into a couple of her research projects, and sure enough, ended up loving it so much. I stayed on every semester, asked for more responsibility, asked for more hours. One semester, I actually just did a full-time UPIC internship and didn't even do classes. So it was my full-time gig. I think I worked around 30 hours a week. And since then, I mean, this might be a question jumping ahead, Cameron, but I was not ever, I came into college never thinking I would want to do something research related. And now here I am pursuing a career path that is highly research focused. And it was primarily because of that UPIC internship with the School of Health Research.
Fun fact, me and Luke actually worked on the same internship team for a little bit before he graduated, and then I graduated. So we both worked for the Clemson University School of Health Research. So yeah, well, thank you both. That's definitely helps to see what students can do. I mean, neither one of you kind of knew what UPIC was at first, and you're like, you know what? I'll try it. It seems pretty cool. And that's usually a lot of the times what UPIC students, or just students in general, understand about UPIC. So perfect. Thank you both. So next question. How did you build a working relationship with your mentor? For those who are on the call or who are not UPIC interns, those are what we call our supervisors. So you have your UPIC interns and you have your UPIC mentor, which is your supervisor for your internship site. So how did you two go about building a working relationship and like working with your mentor?
With me, my mentor, her name was Amy Gooden, and she was really just from the start a really great person. One thing that I think we did in specific that really helped to build our relationship was every day when I came into the office or when I came into work, we'd have a one-on-one. So I'd come in, I'd just sit in her office for about like 15, 20 minutes or so, and we would just talk. She was really comforting. Felt like I was able to open up to her about a lot of stuff, whether it was school related or personal related or whatever. But I just kind of come in her office, chat it up, and then I'd ask her any questions that I had, maybe from the day previous or just anything that I was interested in that day. And then she kind of tell me what's going on with her, and give me some updates about the business, about the things that they're focusing on, about certain risks that they're really having a focus on at the moment. And I think having a one-on-one every time I came in, whether it was formal or really not that formal, I think that really helped to build our relationship and just get comfortable working with one another. Also, I think it just made me more comfortable to ask questions, because when you're an intern, sometimes you wanna look like you know what you're doing, even though you may not. You still want to look like you know what you're doing, and so you don't always want to ask questions. But every day I knew I was going to come in and I'd have an opportunity to ask a question. So even if I felt shy, maybe, or something in the moment to ask it, I could always come in the next day and find out what I wanted to know. And I felt like those moments, those quick 15, 20 minutes were definitely the thing that made me and my mentor closer together.
I think asking questions is definitely a good piece of advice and not feeling scared to do so. After all, the UPIC experience is really trying to, I do think the core philosophy of the UPIC program is to teach you. You're still in a learning environment, so you get to capitalize on that as much as possible. Once you're out of college, you don't get as many opportunities to ask questions, just because everyone's trying to figure out their jobs at the same time. And a lot of people don't have time to sit with you for hours on end and answer your questions, unfortunately. But that's a great advice. I would add on that just general communication and being dependable was really key in developing my relationship with my mentor. As I'd get emails at 11 p.m. at night, making sure that I responded the first moment I could when I was working the next day, and just continually asking for more if I'm kind of sitting back. And I think that kind of I think every employer wants to see their employee engaged and not sitting around. And I also just happened to love what I was doing. And so it was really easy for me to always ask for more and more. And I think in doing that, I developed a sense of trust from my employer, from my advisor, or from my mentor to myself. And she continued to give me more and more work too. But open lines of communication are key. I know that, that's not immune from the struggles of interpersonal hardships and relationship challenges, and just human dynamics in general. So I think Chase and I might have been pretty fortunate in that regard, but I would definitely say just continually talking and being dependable, asking questions will go a long way from their perspective, I think, from the mentor perspective, even if you don't think it will.
No, definitely. That's very true. Even if you're not sure what a project is that you're doing, if you're unsure about something that's in the office, where something is, just being open to being like, I don't know what I don't know. And sometimes that goes a long way because they're more willing to help you then, to be like, okay, let's see what we can do to help you as an intern grow and understand what you're doing. So perfect. Thank you for you both for that. So now going into, I guess, balancing your internship with classes, how were you able to balance that with classes, other commitments, while also making sure that you're learning all you can in your internship as well?
I think it's kind of a cliche answer, but really just time management is what I learned from that. With classes and school and all that kind of stuff, we've all been going to school for as long as we can remember, so we understand how to kind of balance schoolwork and homework and all that kind of stuff. But once you add in a work commitment, that time management, you have to add on like yet another compartment in your brain that you've got to keep up with your task and keep up with all that kind of things. So I think it just made me understand that in life you're dealing with all kinds of stuff. It's not just school and homework, it's also social life, it's also family life, and it's also work life. And it just kind of gave me my first sense of how you take care of a work life kind of balance and making sure that all your time is spent wisely, because there's not a lot of time in the day. So that really just made me focus on spending my time wisely, and also just making sure that every part of my life I was checking off boxes. You might have something that you need to focus on right now, like your school. You might have a big exam coming up, so you have to focus on that more so than your internship maybe. And that's okay. But when you have moments like that, it's also about communicating to others what's going on with you and asking for solutions and different things like that. I remember one time I was having a little bit of trouble getting to my internship on time because I had to switch my schedule up the next semester, because of classes and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't working for me. I wasn't able to get to my location in the time that I wanted to. So I just simply went up to my mentor and I asked them, I was like, hey, can I change my hours? Because this is not really working for me. I want to show up on time. I want to be prepared. But with how my schedule is working, these hours they're not in my favor. So we could just, find a better solution that works for me and you. And that's what we did. And that's what it's really about. It's about give and take and communicating what your needs are to those who are expecting things from you.
That's a really good point. I would say I would just add one quick thing to this is that if you're stressed, if you feel a lot of tension, if you feel like it's really challenging to meet the demands of your life at the moment, that's not always a bad thing. I think there can be moments and thresholds to where that is bad, but I would give you the analogy that someone gave me when I was in college, and it was Although more gets put on your plate as you get older, your plate does expand. So your plate is able to handle more and more. And that's definitely true. I think if you talk to a 30-year-old as an 18-year-old, you're going to realize they can handle a lot more because they've realized their capabilities. They've realized and they've had some time to just reflect and identify the ways that they can stack their load in a healthy balance and in a healthy, balanced way. But yeah, communicating and asking for help is not a bad thing at all. I think that is actually pretty admirable. Communicating is never going to be met with animosity. It's always going to be met with gratitude, especially while you're still in college, especially while you're still in a learning environment as well.
Yeah, definitely. Balancing an internship along with classes can be difficult. But that also I guess the beauty about a UPIC internship is like you make your own schedule. Of course, they're willing to work with you and work with what they have on their schedule for the department. But if you have time between classes, take that time to use. Maybe I work on my internship for maybe 1.5 to 2 hours. And then after at the end of the day, I can go home and do homework. So it's all about balancing what you need. And like Luke and Chase said, um, asking for what you need and telling them, hey, I know I'm not getting to somewhere on time or doing what I can, but I'm willing to make it work or sacrifice some things. So definitely, look into some UBRIC internships that, maybe are hybrid or remote or that whatever works for you. Because we do have positions like that out there too. Perfect. All righty. So next question. Luke, you touched a little bit on this as well too, but Chase, I want you to touch on this. In what ways did your internship experience influence your career goals or help you clarify what you want to do post-graduation?
For me, I would say that it just opened up my eyes to a lot of career paths that are possible. Coming into Clemson, I was a business management major. I didn't even know at the moment what my emphasis was. I just knew that money and business and people and working together, like those are all things that kind of fit with me that I was somewhat interested in. But my understanding of business and what is involved in business was very broad. So going into something like risk governance, which is so specific. I didn't even know what it was, but it's a part of business. It's a big part of business. Everyone has to have a plan for something that might happen in the future. And so I think it also just kind of helped me to realize that there's a whole bunch of things that I could do under business. Everything you touch, there's a business behind it. And so while risk governance is not really something that I would want to specify in my career, in my role, it made me realize that but there's so many other things that I could be doing within my major. And things like that. And just talking to my mentor about other jobs that she has had as well in the past and how she got to her career, it just made me realize that everyone switches, everyone changes, everyone is still figuring out things as they grow up. No one ever has it completely figured out, and no one is ever going to stay the same. People are going to change. They're going to want to do something different, maybe tomorrow. And so with UPIC, it made me just realize that, basically you can have a career, but it's okay if you want to change it or if you want to explore other paths as well.
That's really, really helpful. I would leave this kind of comment just to two things. The most important thing when considering where to work or who to work for or what opportunity to take next, in my opinion, the most two important things are where you should go to the place that you're going to meet the most people and learn the most. And I learned that in my mentorship, in my UPIC internship, and my mentorship, including just meeting so many people to where I can email them now because we've met once and then ask them about their experiences and then ask them about their career path, ask them why they chose what they chose. Again, just communicating is so key, but I think I think it just taught me in my career goals to always be asking questions, always be asking people why they do what they do, and then always just meeting people and showing up. There's a lot of times in college you have a million reasons not to go to something or a million reasons not to show up to something. And my encouragement would be to go show up. You'd be in the minority if you actually show up to what you're invited to. And you're going to meet relationships that you realize down the road are more valuable than you could have ever imagined, even just after talking to them once or twice. And I think my program, my internship really taught me that. And I still kind of hold true to those principles of always looking to learn whatever I can, in my career. Like if tomorrow I realized I was not learning enough where I'm at, I would probably leave. If I realized I wasn't meeting enough people, I'd probably leave, because there's always opportunities to go out there and find. There's always an opportunity to go somewhere else, find places and people that will teach you more and that will expose you to more ideas. And even if, like Chase was saying, even if it's something you realize you don't want to do, there is value in that. I do think just jumping ship immediately, maybe this is counterintuitive to what I just said, but jumping ship immediately can be detrimental, because you'd be shocked at how post grad, I'm realizing you can get paid to do almost anything. There are jobs that span the gamut of life in every form and fashion. And you're kind of siloed into your major in college. You really don't realize what you can do with your major. There's some typical paths that you think in your mind. But I would encourage you, don't jump ship entirely, because the skill set you might be learning there is most likely very transferable to almost any other career in some sense. Maybe you have to abstract it to the highest conceptual level you can think of, or maybe it's really tangible. Like I just got really good at working in Excel from my internship, and I use Excel every day now. So that's a very technical, transferable skill that you'd be shocked at how many career paths and how many trajectories you can take it down the road. So those are a couple of things I'd say there. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Perfectly. Hey, y'all are both dropping some really good nuggets. So I appreciate both of y'all, because both of y'all touched on some things that I also wanted to touch on. In your lifetime, we have found the research in the Career Center that our generation will probably have at least 10 to 15 jobs. We're not in the generation where now we're going to be staying at a job for 20 to 30 years, unless you really like it. There's also always exceptions. So there's nothing wrong with switching career paths. If you want to go do something else, why not? This is the time to do it. The time is now. In your UPIC internship, like Luke was saying, or like Chase was saying as well, you never know what you're going to gain from this experience and kind of how that will help your trajectory. Even if you want to do something outside of your major, I tell students all the time in the Career Center, you don't necessarily have to do an internship in your major. If you're, social media marketing, you could do something with writing, you could do something with videography, you could do something with anything else that you want to do, or being maybe behind the scenes. But if you have a business major, you can try something in the sciences if you want to. You can try something that you may not have thought of, but this is an opportunity for you to at least get paid for it and to see if you like it or not. Because that's also a big perk about the UPIC internship. You get paid, and if you don't like it, that's okay. You can say you don't like it, but you can say I gained some stuff from this, and I will take this into my field that I want to go into. So thank you both for that. The next question, which I think you also touched on too, but if you want to expand on it, how did you handle moments of uncertainty or self-doubt during your internship, or just college in general?
Yeah, I think this also does kind of relate to the other question. Of course, or it relates to everything you've been saying so far. When you first start your first internship, you're gonna have self-doubt because you're not gonna know what's going on, and you're gonna not necessarily know how to ask the questions to figure out what is going on, or you might not feel comfortable to ask the questions to understand what your department does and all that kind of stuff. So I think when I first started, it's just like you're just kind of like, I don't really know what's going on, and you're not sure what paths to take. But as you get a closer relationship with your mentor, and as you get more confident in yourself and what's going on around you, then you'll be able to figure out kind of how to be comfortable being a newbie. Because sometimes it can be uncomfortable, not really understanding or knowing where your place is. But with internships, that's, as Luke was saying as well, like that's all it's about. It's all about asking questions. It's all about learning new things, and no one expects anything else of that from you, but just to show up and to get as much from the experience as you possibly can. So I think in the beginning, I had self-doubt in terms of just knowing my place in the internship and how that whole internship process works and what they expect of me and all that kind of stuff. And then towards the end, I kind of had self-doubt again because I wasn't sure. I really liked my mentor. I really liked working. As Cameron was saying, I was getting paid. I did my internship for I did it from my sophomore year until the first semester of my senior year. But once my fall semester, my senior year was coming up, I kind of knew that this is not the career path I wanted to take for myself. And while I wasn't enjoying being in the environment of the office and enjoying the team that I was with, I still just knew it wasn't what I wanted to do, and there were other ways that I could spend my time more wisely, especially as my senior trying to get a job and all that kind of stuff. So I was kind of conflicted and had self-doubt because I was like, I should be thankful for the experience. And But I ended up just not doing it the next semester, and that really worked out for me because it gave me a whole lot more time to focus on my future and kind of the things that were coming up. But I think that goes back to being okay with switching your mind sometimes and realizing that it's time to move on to something else. It's time to learn something else, and just make yourself a better person.
Yeah, I would really quickly just add to there. Chase covered everything there. Um, I would just say acknowledging it first and foremost is important. Acknowledging it with yourself, acknowledging it, identifying it with your mentor. You'd be shocked at how often they probably hear this self-doubt, which is important. I think having mentors or having even employers in the future that can accept that part of you and work with you is really important. Um, if yeah, okay, I'll move to the second part. No one expects perfection. Um, your job is to adopt a growth mindset. Um, no one, you're the only one expecting that perfection. You need to be thinking more in the progress sense. How am I growing? How am I learning? Who am I meeting? What am I being exposed to that I might not otherwise be exposed to if I didn't have this internship? And then just reframing your thoughts. Ideally, in my life, I do that via community, vessels of community, kind of bringing my complaints, my concerns to people that I'm close to that know me really well, and then asking them, like, is this rational? Is this a valid thought? Is this a valid emotion? Is this, what should I do next? There's an old adage, and I know this is like more relationship focused, but it's like love is blind, but the neighbors are not. And that, I think that goes to show like the people around you actually have a lot more of perspective than you might give them credit for. And then just thinking kind of like Chase mentioned, what can I be grateful for? What can I, how can I be thinking in a way that thinks on the bright side instead of all the negative? Because you actually have a lot more talent than you think you do. And, if you spend the rest of your life waiting for someone to tell you that, you're going to be old and gray before you are fully accepting the fact that most people forget that step when they're talking to you or when they're encouraging you or when they're working with you in the future.
Definitely. Definitely. That self-awareness piece of understanding who you are, but also understanding what you need in a moment or what you need in the future. Like Shay said, she knew that without her internship, that's not what I wanted to do anymore. And sometimes students do that with a semester. After a semester, like, I don't think I want to do this internship anymore. That's okay. Find another one or find a different job that you want to work at, or want to do. Like Luke said as well, I mean, it's better to have that self-confidence or kind of learn to have that self-confidence as you're going through, because of course there's always going to be some moments of doubt or some moments of uncertainty because you just never know. You're in college. We're all in college. I'm getting my master's and I still sometimes don't know, am I really supposed to be doing this sometimes? But you have students and you have people around you that really pour into you and you're like, you're in the right place at the right time. So really check in, with your family, with friends, professors, check in with them to see, what do you think I'm doing good? What constructive feedback do you have for me? Mentors do that all the time as well. As we're doing through site visits, you're going to hear, some things that you can work on to do better, but they do that because they care. They want you to be successful in the internship, in college, but also after you graduate from Clemson. That's why we're all here as well, too. That's a perfect segue to talk about self-awareness and core competencies, because we're gonna ask our two alumni kind of what competencies they felt they grew the most in their current position, but also in their UPIC internship. I also will go back and put the core competencies on the page, so that way students and alumni can see what our core competencies are as well. So give me one moment. Okay, so here we have our core competencies. So if y'all can each touch on maybe one or two that you feel like you grew the most in, or that you think you can grow better in.
Um, well, I'll give one that I grew in my internship, and then one that I feel like I grew in my role here now. My internship, looking at these, I think I definitely like my analytical skills definitely improved during my internship, having to look through all of the data within the app, having to understand the risks and how to categorize them and how to make the information easily readable for anyone, because all departments within the university were adding into the app. So someone like me who doesn't really understand it has to be able to look at it and know what's going on. So I feel like what I was doing with that, it helped me with my analytical skills and looking at details and being able to look at one thing and come up with a conclusion about it based on the information that's presented to me. With my role now, I definitely think my professionalism and just my ability to communicate has definitely been improved since I started working here at the stadium. I work in events, like corporate events and things like that. So you're always having to network. And I was never really one that was comfortable with networking. I did it, I knew how to do it because networking and talking to people is how you get into rooms and get into places and get jobs and things. And I knew it was kind of something that I had to get comfortable with. But now, especially, I'm basically doing networking, like a networking event every single day. That's my job. So I definitely think that putting yourself in an uncomfortable position and just sitting in it for a little bit and forcing yourself to go through with it, it definitely expands, kind of like how Luke was saying before, it expands your ability to take on new things and become a better person. Because now I'm much comfortable in those kinds of situations and just much better at um, giving small talk and talking to people and things like that. So I definitely think I've grown there.
Yeah, I think when I was in my program or when my internship, I would say I grew the most in collaboration and communication. I had to be a really good emailer. I had to be very professional in the way that I email because I'm emailing executives on behalf of my boss, or I'm preparing emails and I'm preparing correspondence on behalf of her. So just thinking through how to communicate strategically, that's a skill that we'll all probably be learning for the rest of our life, but it is invaluable across any industry. There's no industry you're going to go into where you're not going to have to communicate at some level or in some form or fashion. And then I would say things that I'm working on now would be more professionalism. Building, I mean, I'm in a research career, so building self-awareness on where my research agenda fits into the bigger picture of medical research is kind of where I'm at. And then also building my brand. I just sat through a seminar this week saying that, you know, some of the things that we used to do in my field, we're having to transition from. We're having to move into new ways that build our brands as academics, or build our brands as researchers, or build our brands in order to actually, I guess, disseminate what we know and what we've learned and our research and our work in effective ways because in 2025. And so really considering, that's kind of something I'm working through right now, is how do academics, for instance, or how do most people build an effective brand, a personal brand, that's something I'm working on now. I think it's going to look a lot different than what I thought it might look like a year ago. And so I would say I'm really trying to figure out, think, and ask a lot of questions about growing in my brand as a worker, as an employee, as a potential future leader of whatever sort, whether that's human capital or technical capital. I got to figure that out and start working towards it now.
Very true. Perfect. Thank you both. We're gonna do one last question and we'll open it up for questions from the audience. If you could go back, is there anything you would do differently during your internship, or any advice you would give to your past self?
For me, I'm the type of person where I kind of just think everything happens for a reason. So I don't really look at my past and think that there's something that I could change. I think everything, yeah, like I said, it happens for a reason. So if I could go back, I would really just tell myself to keep believing in myself. Putting yourself in the internship, especially for like a first time experience or something like that, it can definitely kind of make you question things, question how good you would be in a career in the future, question, is my major something that I really like to do? But as long as you believe in yourself and you believe that in the future you're going to be a successful person no matter what you do, then that's all that really matters. I mean, like we've been saying, you can take a skill that you never expected to take from an internship. You can take it in and use it in the future. And I feel like with this and every experience that I've had really in college, with internships, with jobs and things like that, good and bad, I've just taken them and used them to make me a better person, a better leader, a better worker today. So I definitely just just believe in it, take in everything, and you'll be okay in the end.
Um, yeah, I would really, if I were to go back, I'd probably not push as hard. Um, I there were seasons in college that I grinded way too hard. I'd have the UPIC internship and I'd take a grad class and I'd take some high level senior class, try to do it all at once. And I think sometimes it made me ineffective at doing it all. And so I would say, if I were to talk to Luke a couple years ago, I would probably tell him to chill out, to not think that everything is so deep, and to, you don't want to half do things. You want to do things in poor manners. And so I would challenge, I think, myself to think critically on what am I engaging in? How am I spending my time? Am I stewarding it well? Am I using wisdom in the way that I'm thinking about where I'm at on a day-to-day basis? Because I think I was kind of just going through the motions and trying to do everything and check everything off. So that would be my thing, just to be more present, to kind of stay where my feet are planted, and be more effective, I think, as an outcome from that.
Those are really good things. I also, too, like Chase, I think everything happens for a reason too. You may not know it in the moment. You may not realize it 5, 10 years from now, but then you're looking 20 years back, you're like, yeah, I was supposed to do that internship, or I was supposed to do that class that I had no interest in, but now look at where I am now. So thank you both for those good piece of advices, but also just some good knowledges of wisdom and stuff like that too. So now, everyone, if y'all have any questions, please feel free to unmute, or ask them in the chat. We'll give them a few more minutes to answer that, and then we'll continue. Oh, we have one for Chase. Since you didn't want to pursue your internship for a career, how did you land a role in your field of interest? Oh.
That's a great question. I think I kind of, when I was taking classes and business classes, I think through those, that's kind of where I figured out where my interest lied a little bit more, in the operations department and things like that. And so I was just at the career fairs, I was just looking into companies around the areas, just trying to figure out, exactly where I would land. Still in this moment, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. But one company came to the career fair, it was DHL Supply Chain, and they just did a lot of the things that I was learning in my class. So I figured, this might be something that I'm good at. And I like what I'm learning in my classes. So that's why I went and applied for DHL Supply Chain. Um, but I just think that kind of going with whatever you're feeling in the moment. I mean, you're gonna know if you feel like you can spend your whole life doing this or not. And also through your talking to your mentor and stuff like that. Because as an intern, you're just getting a little feel, a little getting your feet wet just a little bit. But when you talk to your mentors who are really doing these roles, this is really the responsibility that they hold every day. You kind of get a bigger picture of what the role might actually be if you graduated and started this role tomorrow. And so just taking in that information, I kind of had a little bit of direction and I just went with it. And even when I was at DHL Supply Chain, I was doing that for a year and a half, and I realized that I didn't really like that either. But I had learned so much about operations through my internship, through my classes, through my first role with DHL, that it just worked perfectly for where I am now. Time worked out, opportunities came up, and I had the experience to back me up. So even those two roles I had, they did not end up being what I'm doing right now, which I enjoy what I'm doing right now. But if I didn't do those two things, I would never get to where I am right now. So it just everything we've been talking about comes back full circle.
Perfect. Thank you, Chase, for that. Thank you for that question. Does anyone else have any other questions they would like to ask? You can unmute, or you can also put it in the chat as well.
Cameron, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, as a mentor, I like to encourage students to really take advantage of making those network connections while they're in their internship. Chase, you kind of touched on networking is a really big part of your job now. Do you have any advice for interns on how they can start building up that network while they are in their UPIC internship? Or was there anything specific that maybe your mentor like allowed you to do during your internship that really helped you start building up that that professional network?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I'm also from the North. I'm from Jersey. And so I just kind of grew up in an environment where when you talked about business and work and school and kind of things like that, it's very to the point. You know, when you're talking about business, you don't really talk about any personal experience or anything like that. You're just simply talking about the project at hand. And so my mentor, I'm sorry, she was really good at making me open up about other things that were going on in my life. I wasn't telling her my deepest secrets or anything like that, but she helped me to learn that when you're working with a business partner or just with anybody in general, the more that you're able to just open up and find something in common between you two, the better your collaboration becomes, the better the ideas that come out of it, the better that you're just able to have a partnership within the business as well. So I'd say when you're networking and things like that, just remember that not everybody is expecting you to bring up really like important questions and stuff like that, really educated questions. Sometimes networking is just about going up to somebody and asking them, you know, hey, how was your day? Or where are you from? Something like that. Asking them personal questions as well, because that's also involved in this. It's just knowing people and knowing how they feel at the end of the day. Knowing just, you know, what they might think about some things. That's really important too in networking. So just remember when you're in your internship and you're around your mentor, they're willing to, you know, give you their time and their answers and tell you about their life and their career path. So just use your mentor as a person to kind of like get comfortable asking questions with, because there's somebody that you know is ready for your questions, is ready to give you answers. So I think with networking, get used to asking questions, because if you just ask questions, ask people about their life, they'll open up and they'll tell you everything you need to know. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Hmm.
And Luke, can you speak to it from like the research side, also like maybe like the scientist side as well? Since Chase spoke from the business side, how's networking maybe look different or the same?
Yeah, my internet connection is a little unstable, so I hope you can still hear me.
Yeah, we
Uh,
can.
okay, cool. So I'll keep talking. I would just say being curious is key. Like Chase is adding to the. I think the fortunate part was my mentor threw me in everywhere she was at. And I think that's probably a good strategy, Caitlin, to your point, to your question on how can the mentor engage the mentee in meaningful networking opportunities. I think it's bring them everywhere you go and introduce them and put them in positions that they get to meet your colleagues and talk highly of them and do that kind of thing. Um, because that will, I think, break down any walls or barriers the mentee feels towards engaging with your colleagues and your peers. Because after, I mean, I think that's one thing that any good leader is going to do anyway, is celebrate the wins of your team and just celebrate your team members in general. And I think bringing them along, pointing out the work they did, like, hey, everyone, look at Luke. He created this page, you know, like in the back of the room. I could not have done this without Luke. Like, thank you. I remember that happened a couple of times, and that really helped just spark up a quick conversation with people as they would leave the room or as they would leave whatever event we were at. Now we kind of have, they at least know I exist and that I'm not some apparition in the back of the room just sitting there, you know, with no purpose. So I would say, yeah, in the research world, also, you'd be shocked at how many, I mean, we don't do research in isolation anymore. Science doesn't happen uh, immune from teams. Like we all work in teams. And so the more you can meet, I think the more teams and coalitions you can build, the more successful, the more fun you'll have in your career, I think, as well. So networking is key. I think that's the sum of even, and you can even do it in a UPIC internship in a small college town like Clemson. It is very ripe. You got 30,000 students just walking around you every day. So you got even more people working there. And you got a lot of really smart and really rich experiences to derive questions from and to ask and to be curious about.
Perfect. Thank you both.
No,
All
thank you
righty.
guys.
One last question And then we will get into the rest of the presentation. Why, and if you could wrap up everything we all said, why should students do a UPIC internship? Maybe a sentence or so.
I think students should do it for the experience and for the technical and just life skills that it'll teach you.
Yeah, I would say students should do the UBIC program uh, for an experience unlike others in college, um, and an experience that is most likely more centered, more conversationally going to be the focus of any job or recruiting conversation you'll have in the future. I think the job of college is to get a job, and this is arguably the top factor in enabling better recruiting conversations in the future.
Perfect. Thank you both so much. Please give a hand to Chase and Luke. I really appreciate them sharing their experiences, talking with us on this wonderful Wednesday, and giving your time to talk to students about your big internship experiences. So thank you so much to both of you for being on here with me.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Cameron, and thank you everyone else for joining.
Thanks for having us. This has been a joy.